Hello there. I am so glad that you're here tonight. Thank you for joining me. I am Kat Hobson, and you are watching Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad you're here tonight. There's conferences coming up galore. Contact in the Desert is coming up in the summer. Um, Actually, they're everywhere. You've got the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash if you are so, inclined to go to that. That's a paranormal conference. And it's also a good place to do a sky watch because it's pretty dark out there. But one of the things that I absolutely love is representing Fate Magazine. I am going to be doing that in April up in Arkansas at the Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. Brain fart, sorry about that. But it's so much fun. And every time I get to do anything like that, I just enjoy it beyond belief. I get to be around people I like and know. I get to be around just people who have all kinds of neat experience in the fields, whether they're experiencers or researchers or wacky but really good astronomers like Mark D'Antonio. I mean, there's a lot of fun things that happen there. They have people that can do just about any kind of reading you might like, whether it's tarot. Oh, and there's going to be somebody there that has tarot cards that the people with Ozark are not even familiar with. So I think that's going to be kind of interesting. I'm not much of one for a tarot reading, but I've had one done that was very surprising to me because I didn't know anything about that. So, and the person that did it had kind of an interesting take on things too. So that was weird. But it's really a cool thing. We had a numerology chart done. Lori and I each did last year. She will not be there this year because she is taking care of getting her new home in Gulf Shores set up. And so she's having fun with that. But the main thing is that you can learn so much there. You can get, like I said, any kind of reading, a psychic reading, a tarot reading, a numerology reading, people throwing runes. There's all kinds of stuff. And when I came into that particular conference, I was surprised by how laid back it was. I have been to the big ones. I've been to UFO Congress in Phoenix, a couple of the Contact in the Deserts, the very first and second Alien Cons. It's very interesting to see the difference in the types of conferences. And it's not that any of them are really better than the other. Size does not count in that kind of thing. It is the quality of the guests that they have. And I'm a member of the Scientific Coalition on UAP Studies, and I'm probably not going to be going to that one because it's in Toronto this year. And I love Toronto, but that may be a little bit out of my travel budget because Belize. But it's really very cool to get. That's my favorite UFO UAP conference because it's people that actually are doing the work with rockets. I mean, we're talking rocket scientists for real, all of them. And they let me come, right? I think it's just wonderful that they do that. I think it's one of my favorite group of people too. I mean, it's growing, but it's a very relatively small conference because it is the science of UFOs and rockets because Travis Taylor is a member and he's so awesome. But anyway, there's all that. I give him some grief on my shows sometimes, but he really is pretty darn smart. And the thing about that conference is that at any given time, any person in that room would be the smartest person in any room, but they're all there together. So that's kind of fun. They're all bona fide geniuses. And I think that the work that they do is brilliant. So that being said, if you can get to Toronto for this conference, you should go because I just love it. Now, I'm going to the specs, okay? Because if I'm going to be sharing some of these articles with you, I should be able to see them. And as we all learned Wednesday, if I don't have my glasses in, I can't see squat. So, not saying anything else about that except that thank goodness Carl is as good as he is, and that, he understands sometimes when I struggle. I don't struggle much. I really don't. I have adult ADHD that's new, relatively new. I'm learning it. It is never a boring thing. I wish it was a boring thing, but now a lot of this stuff is older, and a lot of it is new. But of course, the artwork is so. Oh, come on, that light is too bright for this. Maybe I forgot. Are you dizzy yet? But this is Contactee, Stone Coffins, Uri Geller, and Rebel Angels. So let's see if this one will show up better. They're still not showing up very well, Carl. Maybe it's too much light there in the center. We'll find out. But I just thought,
turn your blur off.
my blur off. Where is that?
Go to your virtual settings. Down at the bottom.
I'm looking.
Put none.
Visual effects. Mm. Okay.
Now hold the book up.
That's so much better. Thank you, Carl. So, for those of y'all that might ever doubt that Carl Albertson is a genius, just stop it, okay? He protects me from myself all the time. And right now, for him, that's a pretty tough job. So, I'm in the process of getting better, but we're all learning how to deal with my ADHD because sometimes it's, so, but he's a genius. So, anyway, look at that cover. I mean, and I'm going to share because Janice Carlson is the psychic for Fate Magazine Radio. And she never does her predictions right at the beginning of the year. She waits and she gets a sounding on what they're going to be. And so she works on her charts and does all of her things. And when she's ready, she comes on. So she writes for Fate also. And this article is one of hers. Well, that's a lot of light. Talking to dead celebrities. And in this, we have Ernest Hemingway, Duane Allman, and George Harrison. And she starts it by saying that a couple months ago, Phyllis Scaldi, publisher of Fate, made a very interesting comment to me. She said, I suppose even mediums like you can't get celebrities to talk to you from the other side. It seems like a very likely notion, yet I immediately realized it was not true. So she goes on. In fact, I reflexively rattled off a list of deceased celebrities who have conversed with me at length. It included the Beatles' George Harrison, author Ernest Hemingway. Oh, I'd love to have that conversation, wouldn't you? And Duane Allman of the Allman Brothers Band, and visual artist Andy Warhol. I love his work. I got to see one of his exhibitions in Vegas last year. So oddly, I knew little or nothing about any of these luminaries. Sure, I was a casual fan of the Beatles, and I liked the music of the Allman Brothers. Again, however, I knew nothing about any of their private lives. I'm the author of 15 novels released in the 1980s and 90s by New York publishers under the pen name Ashland Price, but that hardly seems like enough of a coincidence to prompt Ernest Hemingway to suddenly start speaking out to me. Our writing styles, genres, and perspectives couldn't be farther apart. I'm pretty sure that's true. So, what's more, if I had any interest in art or painters, Andy Warhol's work would not even appear on my radar. So, why would any of these famous men agree to speak with me, someone who has little or nothing in common with any of them? Quite simply, it's because one of their loved ones induced them to do so. If in George Harrison's case, it was an inadvertent encounter I had with one of his siblings. Then one of Hemingway's nieces asked me to speak to him during a medium session. A past girlfriend of Duane Allman paid me to communicate with him on the other side, and one of Andy Warhol's journalist friends requested a medium session with him. Thus, these living loved ones were the glue that made communication with these famous spirits possible. And mental mediums like me know all too well how essential that glue is to conducting successful sessions. Unlike channeling and physical mediumship, the mental variety involves a three-way conversation. I, the medium, see images, hear words and phrases, and receive sensations in my chakras. But my client, the living loved one, must help me interpret the information I'm receiving. This input could represent memories of the dead person's life on earth, information about the deceased current existence in heaven, and even predictions about my client's future. So it's possible for me as a medium to communicate with these dead people is it possible for me to communicate with famous dead people without one of their living loved ones taking part in this three-way communication? A few years ago, I would have answered no to this question. That was until some fascinating information was revealed to me. Over the past decade, my husband and I have frequently vacationed in a lovely mining town called Galena, Illinois. This village's most famous past resident was Ulysses Grant. Although Galena was the home of 9 Civil War generals, it is, of course, most proud of Grant. So much is published there about his day-to-day life, and Galena's citizens celebrate his April 27th birthday each year by holding a weekend of festivities in his honor. Time and again, while vacationing there, I was struck by a sense of closeness to Grant. Although I wasn't inclined to feel an affinity for stern Civil War officers, he seemed to be communicating with me, and the historical records indicated that he and I had several things in common. His late April birthday, his enjoyment of burnt food, boy, he would have loved my kitchen, his lightweight response to alcohol, his single-mindedness in pursuing his goals were just a few of these. While some of these similarities can simply be assigned to the fact that Grant and I were both born under the sign of Taurus, I felt a deep affection for him that made absolutely no sense to me. After all, I'd never met him. And couldn't recall having a Civil War era past life. Yet every time we visited Galena, I seemed to almost be channeling him. Fast forward 3 years, and one DNA test later, I discovered that Galena was meant to be far more than just a vacation destination for me. To my amazement, Ancestry.com revealed that my British forebears actually settled there in the mid-1800s. Even more astounding, an obituary disclosed that my 3 times great-grandfather from Scotland had been a friend of Grant's, quite probably having met him at the Methodist church they both attended. And therein was hidden the afterlife communications glue I spoke of earlier. My prominent Scottish forefather wanted me to get to know about his famous friend firsthand. It took a few years to come to light for me, but again, familial love and friendship are the surest conduits to receiving messages from those on the other side, be they famous or not. And Janice has been a professional medium for over 25 years, and she has clients everywhere. Her book that I love, and it sits right on that shelf back there, is called Soul Sensing. And it really will help you to communicate with your own dead loved ones. So if you want to get more information about that, then I'll be glad to give it to you. So, but again, Janice Carlson, Carlson. So this is this still part of that? I don't No, no. These are personal accounts of paranormal events from our readers. And the reason that I was hesitating here is because it's Lilydale. Can you see that? That light is still really bright, but it's the only one I have. So we have to make do tonight. Now, this is something I have so many friends who trained at Lilydale. And I didn't even know what it was when I was talking to these people. It's a big deal. And I was interviewing people about their backgrounds, why they did the things that they did, how they learned to do the things that they did, what was the pull for them there. And time after time, my friends were like, oh, well, yeah, I trained at Lilydale. And I was just kind of like, well, I'm plugging it up. That sounds like it's an exciting thing, but I don't even know what that is that you're telling me. And so I'm back. We all just kind of laughed and they educated me. And so that was probably almost 10 years ago. Since that time, I have met probably at least 2 or 3 people a year who trained there. And granted, most of them are not, they're not really the average bear, right? They go everywhere, they do everything, and they have worked I don't know what just happened there, but it appears that we have a moody second light. Now we're going to have to look at me looking green. Oh, well, or not. I'll take it. So, it's just really funny because it's nowhere near me. It's up, I believe it's in Ohio. It is a quaint, really old town, and it is completely metaphysical. So friends in Florida trained at Lilydale, friends on the West Coast trained at Lilydale. And it's just really fascinating to me because we don't have anything like that here that I'm aware of. I grew up in Birmingham. So like I said, I don't really do that, but it's just so cool, right? The odds of me doing this show for over 10 years. That was a big deal. And then this one's 5. Paranormal experience is over 10. And this is actually over 5. So yay. But it's really one of the more bizarre things that I've come across. So I'm going to read you this about Lilydale. And if this does not have Barbara Gosch, Gosch. I'm sorry, I couldn't find it. Now, this is Lilydale back in the day. And from what I understand, it's still very quaint, still very old, and really kind of cool. So, Lilydale. And their sign says the City of Light. I know you probably can't see that, but I was living in the Midwest for several years and looking forward to returning to my ethnic roots in Buffalo, New York, where my family and longtime friends still lived. However, little did I know what would be revealed from this particular trip's experience. Lilydale, maybe it's in New York. Lilydale has been known since 1879 as a meeting place for spiritualists and freethinkers. At a personal level, and more significant to me, The discovery of profound experiences revealed that I'm compelled to share them with others. And one special example, I had not known about something my reader told me had happened until my return to the Midwest. My recollection of Lilydale captured my interest due to the sense of peacefulness and spiritual quality existent. I felt this from being amongst magnificent weeping willow trees, a lovely lake, and a certain stillness pervading the area, with old 19th century houses. I knocked on the door with the address given, and a woman answered who introduced herself as my reader, saying, "I was expecting you." Next, she proceeded to show me around the quaint parlor before we entered the reading room. The only other place I've seen a reading room was at Winchester House. And Sarah Winchester actually had a seance room, and she had readings done in another one. So she proceeded to show me around the quaint parlor before we entered the reading room. I had a tape recorder asking, "Is it okay if I tape you?" She agreed. It was fine. Before I knew it, the psychic was rocking in her chair, getting into a trance-like state. She announced, "Flo is here, and your mother." I get all excited given my friend Iris had been telling me about Flo in the car, and for a brief moment thought she mixed up my mother with Iris's mom, who had been like a second mother to me because my mother had become very sick. However, she then got right on target with specific experiences with what she said. The reader told me, "Spirits are in this room now with you. The problem is you're always running and they can't catch up with you. You have to slow down." Keep in mind, I had not even known I was seeing this psychic until that day. This was totally correct, and I have a high energy level. She continued, "Your mother is crocheting. It's unbelievable she'd know that because many years earlier, my mother had a heart attack that killed her, but prior had mental illness and brain surgery that was to help her. Unfortunately, it left her like a zombie. Unfortunately, since still she continued crocheting, which was a skill she'd been trained to do in Albania, along with being highly educated. The psychic could have said knitting, sewing, painting, or any other things like my American friends' mothers did, but disclosed this particular skill few others even knew in my area. Quickly proceeding, she asked, "Who's the telephone operator in your life?" This was said in a frenzied kind of trance, rocking back and forth, not looking at me. "You won't marry him, but he'll be a good friend to you and help you," she said. This was completely true, and I had told Jim, known as Smokey, a man I was involved with for 10 years, exactly those words she mentioned. Smokey and I both met at a local program on American Indian treaty rights. Shortly after, he invited me to join him for lunch at intermission. It was then he told me he knew where he met me before. It was during a dream that he had when he had a near-death experience. She was correct. At the time, I had only known Smokey as an experienced and impressive administrator executive for AT&T. When I returned to Eau Claire and couldn't wait to inform Smokey about my paranormal experience with the psychic, he told me I was a telephone operator. When AT&T operators went on strike, management was told to become the operators. That's funny. I remember that. I was working the switchboard with the phones, he revealed to me. How did the reader know these experiences, and in particular, one even I had not known was true? That is why I was compelled to write my story. For me, and because of other experiences I've had in life, I believe there's more to life than we know if we remain open. Now, I'm going to agree with that. And that's because I had things that happened to me that they were totally unexpected. You know, I was the last. Rick McCollum always laughs and says I was the last casualty in the Battle of Culloden because I got shot there. Not literally shot, but I had abdominal pain and I had to leave. It was really, really bad. And I mean, because I was just walking along, I'm tripping along the path. They've got a paved path that you walk through there on. And I didn't really want to step on anybody's grave or remains or anything else. So I was good on the path. And it was the most sudden, sharp pain right in the middle of my gut, right around my solar plexus. And I mean, I don't get stomach problems, right? And this was so sudden and it was so hard and it felt like it went into me. And Rick was walking beside me. So, that was my experience out on a battlefield. I got hit in the head too that trip. I'm not a physical medium. I'm not. And apparently I was that trip. So there's that. But I just think that we don't know what we're going to find sometimes. And psychics can see so much. It's just crazy. My friend Lee Dunn, and y'all saw an interview with Lee Dunn on Fate. He is brilliant. He is probably the most accurate psychic that has read my energy in a long time, if not ever. And he's with Scottish Paranormal. When he did my reading, I was just kind of like, okay, yep, okay, because he didn't know who had caused and it really was an injury. It hurt after I got back to America, and it hurt for months after I got back to America. And it doesn't now, thank goodness. But it was such a bizarre thing to have. And I don't want to do that. Okay. People that do that, y'all are so brave and strong. And I'm brave, but I don't like pain. So I don't want to feel somebody get whacked on the head, which causes a death, or somebody gets shot in the gut and that causes their death. I'm not even looking forward to whatever is going to cause mine, right? I don't want to experience other people who have done that. And I know that sometimes I haven't had a chance to share with anyone since that happened to them, but I'm pretty sure there's an awful lot of psychics and mediums who walk through there. It's a huge draw. And a lot of people can do that. I just was not anticipating the experience, and I don't really want to experience it again. So now I thought this was something weird. And considering that our tech guy at Fate is a musician who, by the way, if you live in Birmingham, he is coming to the Nick, and you're going to want to go see him. His name's Stevie Tombstone. But this actually is an interesting article. I don't know what you're going to think about it, but it was man builds guitar from deceased uncle's remains. Carl, you may want to think about this when you're building your boxes, but I'm just kidding. But a man who goes by the YouTube handle of Prince Midnight has fashioned a unique guitar using the most unlikely of parts, his uncle's remains. Prince Midnight's uncle Flip passed away while in Greece back in the 90s. According to the nephew, he donated his uncle's skeletons to one of the colleges where it was medically prepared. The college kept the skeleton for 20 years before Flip's skeleton was sent to the cemetery, and there it remained. According to Prince Midnight, his family was paying rent on the cemetery plot, and the Orthodoxy religion of Greece frowned upon cremation. He went through the motions to have his uncle's remains repatriated to his custody, and eventually he received his uncle in the form of a box of bones. I'm not sure what I think of this story. Prince Midnight was unsure of what to do with his uncle's remains and how to honor him. Flip had gotten him into heavy metal, so Midnight thought of no better way to immortalize his uncle than to turn his skeleton into a guitar. This was no easy process, as he tried to consult with multiple woodworkers who thought the idea was way too morbid. Go figure. Midnight ran into many issues while researching how this could be done. Along the process, he broke several ligaments, and the bone itself was foul-smelling when he drilled into it, which had to be addressed. I think so. Eventually, Prince Midnight did finish his guitar in working fashion. He can be seen playing with his uncle on his official YouTube page here. He has named the guitar Philip, Philip, Skelecaster. And if you want that YouTube page, I will send it to you, or I can put it up there, but I will post it, at the end of the show. So I just thought, Carl, that you might appreciate that. He's saying no. I don't blame him. So I just, I try to find these. I don't want to get the most god awful 75-page articles to read to you. But well, this is nice. Now, this is reports from readers, and this is it's like letters to the editor. Okay, and this edition is from, the world may never know. It's kind of like an Oreo. Issue 738. I'm not seeing a year. Of course, I'm not seeing a year. I'll ask her. She'll know. But, dear Phyllis Galdi, I wanted to send you a photo of a letter I wrote to Fate magazine in 1978 in which I made 3 predictions exclusively for Fate. The first prediction was that between 1978 and 1983 there would be a new pope. Very shortly after my letter, Pope Paul died. The second prediction was that a change would be made in the high government of the Soviet Union. In 1982, the General Secretary died, and the office was filled by Andropov. The third and last prediction was that there would be no world war. My name at the time of the letter was my birth name, Paul Petrolis. I don't know if Fate ever published the letter, but the predictions were given notice by a newspaper, of which I have a clipping. Best wishes and regards, John Paul Holiday. And then, the Amazing Godwin. That is The Amazing Godwin from Spirit, as told to Phyllis Galdi by Janice Carlson. David Godwin was the owner of Fate magazine, and he and Phyllis did this together until he passed, and Phyllis has handled it ever since. But I love this because he will come and Janice will channel him to Phyllis. And this says, The Amazing Godwin from Spirit is told to Phyllis Galdi by Janice Carlson. And so Phyllis asks questions and she gets her answers. And some of these have been really interesting. It's my favorite part. Probably shouldn't say that, but it is my favorite part of Fate magazine because it's like they're still working together, the magazine. So Phyllis's question in this edition, there are a couple. Oh, there's another one that we're going to read too. Question, is there life on Mars? David says there was a civilization on Mars centuries ago. They weren't humans, but certainly humanoids. He's telling me it was not natively their planet, but some kind of stopover until they could reach a planet that was more habitable to them. The U.S. government will, if they haven't already, do some excavation on Mars that will reveal this previous civilization, but they will not tell the people all that they discover for fear of arousing public panic. The face on Mars was representative of this humanoid race, and they created it and left it there out of some form of sentimentality. He says, an image of our God. Question, is there a secret space colony on Mars from our government? David wouldn't call it a colony just yet, but the U.S. government and other wealthy influencers have progressed a lot more toward colonization than they are revealing to the public. I do not know who this person that they're referencing is, but the question is, what does David think of exopolitics and Alfred Lembermont Weber? David thinks Alfred's work is crucial to the survival of the human race. He says, unless we become less warring and less ecologically destructive, we are destined to sink into another crushing series of catastrophic events that will bury us and our technological advances under mud and ice for millennia. Most ETs are trying to help us prevent that outcome. They want to help us in a higher plane of existence where we will be safer. And, I would buy that. This is what I wanted to read. And I don't know if y'all remember, I did a show on Urantia a couple of years ago, if you've been listening and following for a while. Do you think the Urantia information is valid? David says the Urantia book so clearly represents the science of 1920s through the mid-1950s that it must be a creation of that time period and not channeled information from the infinite time-space continuum. He says the Urantia Foundation felt that assigning one or even many authors' names to it would minimize its impact and messages and make it more subject to criticism. But David also says some of the information in the book was channeled from celestial beings and that the Urantia Foundation conducted group channelings in order to generate content for the book. That said, he assigns much of the act of writing the book to a woman in that group whom he does not name. Regarding Wiley's books, David seems to resonate more with the claim that the Pleiadians are watching humans from interdimensional locations than the information about fallen angels. This is probably because he personally thinks of angels as ETs. Question, does David know any aliens? David doesn't know any ETs personally, but he has met several of them. He lists the following groups: insect-like greys, reptilian, Pleiadians, invertebrates, light beings, often manifest as orbs, vaporous beings, crustaceans who live in shells, gatekeepers such as the men in black. Some gatekeepers take on a humanoid form, others do not. David says Indrid Cold is part of the Men in Black group dealing with interdimensional visitations from the Mothman. They try to minimize damages done to Earth's timeline and the space-time continuum. Also, alien creatures like the Mothman and Bigfoot can be violent toward humans if provoked. They are hunters by nature. So MIBs, like Cold, try to prevent loss of life whenever and wherever possible. Many of the time-space portals and UFO sightings have been documented there and captured on film. The History Channel has been airing a great series about it for the past 2 years, featuring astrophysicists, etc., and studying the cattle mutilations there. David said because so much private money is being poured into the investigations there, it's likely to be one of the breakthrough spots for UFO disclosure by the government to the public. But it's also a place where information about portals and vortexes will be disclosed, particularly when it comes to cryo creatures coming into our time-space dimension on Earth from other places, dimensions, and times. So he's talking about Ingrid Cold. I got lost. I'm sitting there going, where did it say Skinwalker? It did not. So, question, this is going to be interesting, right? Who is really running the show on the planet? Definitely globalists running the show, mainly in an effort to maintain world peace. The ETs are very averse to the use of nuclear weapons, as you know, but there are greedy souls amongst the humans and aliens involved who are only interested in reaping Earth's natural resources. The Greys can be rapacious. Other ETs are more altruistic and have the human race's best interest at heart. Pleiades, Orion, even some reptilians, and some without corporal bodies in the spiritual dimension. They are worried about overpopulation here and decreasing resources leading to warfare amongst nations. Question, what does David say about the ETs I saw in Elmwood, Wisconsin? Phyllis has lots of experiences. The grasshopper creature was from an audacious green race who digest their food by spitting acid on it, even before they have it in their mouths. They are talented, creative, friendly, and musical. Another light creature on the stage was more insect-like, more like a stick insect, so thin as to be almost invisible unless spotted from the correct angles. I'm telling you, that section of Fate is always my favorite, except if I or a friend read an article. And then those are, oh, hair everywhere. Goodness gracious. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, good heavens, the time is flying, Carl. Let's see. We'll come back to this because there are some good articles and there's some good writers in here too. You know, I'm always interested because there have been a few of the previous hosts of Fate that I knew and know. Chase Klotsky was somebody I love dearly. She's a good friend. She is a good human. And when I first met her, she was doing a radio show at Sloss Furnace. She was with a ghost hunting group business. And I didn't know that she was the host of Fate Magazine. She was doing a Fate Magazine radio show the night I met her at Sloss. And I didn't know that for years and years and years. So that was a lot of fun. It just, you know, What You Do didn't come up at that time. I was already doing Paranormal Experience. So it was really fun. She was actually who made me decide that I wanted to get more serious with that because she's a good role model. She's a neat person. And I just love her to death. But one of the articles in here is written by the person that ahead of her, and that was Vance Pollock. Let's see how long this one is and what it's about. Oh, my goodness. Ooh, America's Occult Militia. And oh my gosh, I can't make it better. But there's a picture that goes with this article. They look like kind of Nazis in dapper hats. President Roosevelt is one of the most famous figures in American history. However, during his four-term tenure as president for life, he faced many detractors. Amongst them were the domestic fascist Silver Legion of America, better known as the Silver Shirts, SS, led by goatee-bearded mystic William Dudley Pelley. I didn't even know about this. Did y'all? Did you, Carl? No, Carl didn't either. Members shared a fanatical interest in the occult and spirit channeling in addition to their fringe political views. Men were active in the military-drilled Legion posts, while female silver skirts organized spiritualist chapels. Photographs of the group are rare, as they operated their own publishing house and did not court mainstream publicity, which was most often negative. Wonder why? This image was part of a private collection of a lady supporter who owned the group's Silver Lodge property in Redmond, Washington. Washington was home to their most active chapters during the 1936 election year. Pelley ran for president on the Christian Party ticket, only on the ballot in Washington state, and garnered 1,600 votes. Small groups of silver shirts like this one would march into the violent dock worker strike riots in Seattle, for example, and come out with not a scratch. Their uniform was charged with occult symbolism and may have invoked what Pedley described as the armor of Christ. Christian soldiers returned from World War I, who made up a good share of the Legion's ranks, sometimes reported being surrounded by a pale blue glow while in combat. Bullets would pass all around them, some said through them, without doing harm. Does this rare formation photo of Pelley's Silver Legion depict this otherworldly protection? And he actually did. He hosted in 2017 and wrote American Archvillain at archvillain.substack.com. So even back then, oh, that's pretty good, isn't it, Carl? So there you go. That's a little freaky, in my personal private opinion. I think it's freaky. Let's see. Something I haven't read everything out of it to you so far. I think this cover is funny. Okay. I really do think this cover is funny. Poltergeist attack. People with no brains. So if you have no brains, you have to watch out for poltergeists. I love that. And I know, corny as a corn dog. That's me. So this is from January of 2008. Let's see what we have here. And I know I do go through the things, but sometimes it just seems like you're led to read something that you didn't plan on. I don't know. Ooh. People who live without brains apparently get attacked by poltergeists. Let's see. We've got so many things in here, guys. We've got Ice Falls, which I think is going to be one. Wildfires and the Devil, which is relevant to New Jersey wildfires back then. The Ghost of Saxtown Road, Poltergeists, Aloha Cryptozoology. You know, I hadn't really thought about cryptids in Hawaii. Let's go look at that. There's another article on Light in the Void, which is, well, this is a really multiple. Of course, I picked the longest article in here. I don't think we're going to read it, but I will share some of it with you. And it's Mythic and Mystery Beasts of Hawaii. And there's the geckos. I didn't know that they would have been mystic, but I know that they're really popular when you get out into Arizona. And then there's a giant octopus model and a gentleman sitting there. That's the author. And here is an artist rendition of a giant squid at the top and then a giant octopus. So I'm assuming they were battling, but you know what happens when you assume. And then they've got two mystery birds. So the bishop's ooh bird, and there's not another that doesn't show the other one. But this is pretty good art for a magazine back then, 2008, I think. I'm not going to lie. I absolutely love Fate magazine. And I am beyond honored to be the host of this radio show. And back then, there were so many like little advertisements in the back. You know, Mysteries of the Bride Chamber, the Gnostic Faustus, an Oracle from Eternity. What is the Holy Grail? And usually these were books that you could buy from Fate. See order form on page 126, yes. The New Archaeology Review, Bigfoot, Beast or Spirit Guide, Paintings by Spirits. I love that. There's a friend of mine in England he used to do tours at Chillingham, which is a really cool, really haunted castle in England. And there was a ghost called David. And David liked to paint. So my friend would put the canvas up for David, and David would make the oh, come on, Brian, the stand, the tripod that they would put the painting, the easel. David would make the easel dance and rock and such, and he would also paint. And I was really not sure what I thought of that, right? Until other people started going and doing investigations at Chillingham that I knew, who said that that was really something that would happen there. I did not know what I thought of that. But I learned a lot about him. So they have fake keychains. And here is the amazing Godwin. Let's see what is this one. Now, I just really am fascinated by this because it's very rare for someone to be channeling or speaking with the spirit, and the person that they're doing that for, whose questions are being answered, is willing to share the information. I mean, I think that's very cool. And Phyllis, those of you who have followed Fate forever, those of you who write for Fate, who are authors that, by ads and everything else, and John Russell, I'm looking at you, know how cool Phyllis is. And I feel like, having lost her day-to-day relationship with David, that he would have found a way to reach her. She would have found a way to reach him. They were very committed. And it's one of my favorite great love stories of all time, and Phyllis hasn't told me that. And this is actually a letter written by David. And this was before he passed. So, the amazing Godwin. In answer to a letter from a prospective reader in this month's report from the readers, as well as several other authors in print and on the cursed internet, I would just like to point out that the stars are not visible in the moon's black sky in the Apollo photographs because it was daytime. The sun was shining brightly and drowning out the light of any stars. You can't see the stars in daytime on Earth. Why should you be able to see them during the day on the moon? Because the sky is black? Well, the sky on Earth is blue during the hours of sunlight because of reflections from tiny particles in the atmosphere. If the Earth, like the moon, had no atmosphere, what color would the sky be? That's right, black. So you still wouldn't be able to see the stars in the daytime. And if all of this doesn't even address the fact that it is very hard with normal camera settings, shooting at a normal speed, to capture stars in the night sky on film. Take a picture of a friend standing in the front yard at night using a flash or other artificial lighting, and the sky will be black with no stars. No hoax, no warehouse. But the real question is, why is it so necessary to prove that everything is a deception and or a conspiracy, still speaking to today? In some cases, conspiracies do consist. The plot to kill Lincoln involves several people who laid their plans in a boarding house and elsewhere. Whether Secretary of War Edwin M. Stanton was involved or not remains an open question, although mainstream historians very much doubt it. But was there a conspiracy to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Many signs point in that direction, but was there? And who was behind it? Moscow? Havana? The mafia? I would bet on the mafia. But does everything have to be a conspiracy? The bombing at the Federal Building in Oklahoma City. Is it true that no ATF employees were there that day? The disaster of 9/11. Why would the Jews do such a thing? Isn't it far more likely that Muslim fanatics did it because of their hatred of the U.S., stemming from its support of Israel? Of course 9/11 was a conspiracy, but with Osama bin Laden at the head of it, as he now admits or claims. Yes, our government has deceived us at every turn. There have been heartless experiments carried out on unsuspecting victims. There have been outright denials of the obvious, such as the dangers of radioactive waste or various undercover tests. The administration stonewalled Watergate. We made war on Iraq because of government lies and misdirection. And of course, UFOs. Author and TV personality John Greenwald Jr., love that guy, has proven conclusively with documents obtained from the government itself under the FOIA that the public has been consistently lied to for the last 60 years. Trust no one. David F. Godwin. I tell you, you can absolutely tell that he and Phyllis were destined. Kind of the same person in a lot of ways. I like it. Now, these are true mystic experiences. And I'm going to turn this way so that I get, apparently this light is the strongest light I've ever seen in my life. I feel like I'm getting a sunburn here. But the warning dream, and these are just true mystic experiences. Good grief. There we go. And these are the authors. The warning dream. I knew I was dreaming. Everything moved in slow motion, the same dream as it was last August and the August before that for 2 years. It was haunting me. I woke startled again. Don't you hate when that happens? Negative energy fields were surging to the surface. My heart beat wildly. That was the last time I had that dream. I had no idea then, but for 20 years later, I would know the meaning of the dream in the personal and metaphysical realms. And this is really long, and I don't know. But it involved her son. And 20 years earlier, it was August 7th, 1960. Our beautiful baby boy was born, and we named him John. It was a joyous day to be sure. He really was a beautiful baby. We carried him home to the congratulations and good wishes of loving family and friends. For 2 weeks, we were busy settling in with a new addition to our family. On August 29th, after a busy day, I went to bed to have the first of 3 dreams. It was a bitterly cold day. Snow was falling and silently covering the world with its pristine white blanket. Suddenly, the winds began to blow. The crystal flakes swirled, and I could not see very well. Icy snow hit my face, stinging and mingling with my tears. I can't get to my baby, I cried, my feet deep in the snow holding me back. I jumped up, my heart pounding. I ran to my baby, picked him up, and held him ever so tightly. I sat in the rocking chair beside his crib, holding him in my arms. I wouldn't let go. And as the dawn came and she realized he was okay, he was safe. It was August. There was no snow. And just after his first birthday, the same dream haunted me. Frightened and upset, I tried to find some answers and not to focus on the negative force around me. Another year passed and it happened again. John was now 2 years old and doing fine. He was our pride and joy. Then I wondered about the karmic doctrine, which holds that all actions have consequences, and decided to show less pride in how we thought our son was so special. For the next 20 years, I had no fearful dreams at all. One day, my now grown son said he did not feel well. At first, I didn't think too much of it, but he could not eat and he kept saying he was not himself. Our family doctor admitted him to the hospital where many tests were taken. At first, the tests came back negative, but then the phone call came. To this day, I hate the ring of the telephone. He was terminally ill, the doctor said, with a rare form of cancer. It made no sense. He was so young, strong, and beautiful. On Valentine's Day, I sat by my dear son. His last words to me were, "I'm dying." I felt my heart shatter, broken forever with the pain severe and permanent. He slipped away like a gentle bird. Days later, the funeral cortege wound its way along the cemetery road. There was snow everywhere. Beneath the new falling snow, white and pristine, was ice. Plows had made a path. The line of cars followed the hearse up the hill to the new section of the rural cemetery. Suddenly, the hearse got stuck on the ice-covered road. We too in our car stopped. Then the hearse began to move, but we could not, for the wheels just spun around. I jumped out of the car, my feet in the snow. Icy hail had stung my face, mingled with my tears. The wind whipped me. I tried to run, but strong hands gripped my shoulders. My husband and someone else were pulling me. No, I screamed. I can't get to my son. All at once, a blinding light covered my eyes and face. The spirits were there. They had gently tried to prepare me years ago. Now I knew the meaning of the dream. The warning. It has not lessened my pain. I cry out to the spirits, but now there is only silence. They have completed their task, but they will be back with my son for me, and I wait. In loving memory of my dearly beloved son, John. And I'm going to tell you that our family lost a teen, not to disease. And it's just really something. I didn't expect that when I started reading that article, that letter. And so there's that. These are reports from the readers. Secret Speed. The November 27th article, The Secret Speed of Consciousness by Roberta Marshall, was an interesting explanation of this mysterious process. I've had this experience several times in my life and like to add an additional perspective. We all know what it's like to be startled. It's quite a shock to the nervous system, and it takes a few minutes for the body to return to normal. When the body perceives a threat, the nervous system tries to control its response by slowing down the energies, thereby receiving the impulse at a more manageable speed. This helps to avoid the startle reflex as well as possible heart attack. This only works if the person sees the disaster coming. As the article indicated, this process has many possible uses. There are so many things our bodies can do that we haven't yet tapped into. Someday, we may learn to utilize our slow-mo process in even more exciting and unexciting ways. So, I think that's interesting. I do think that we all have this so that we can manage ourselves. Now, I have to tell you that there's one here called Haunted Lighthouses. And our November 2007 issue had an article on that. And I did an interview some years back with two gentlemen who had written Haunted Lighthouses book. I love that book. I love lighthouses. That's beach. So I enjoyed reading about the haunted lighthouses in the November 2007 issue when the lights went out on Flannan Island by Fiona Bunting and Haunted Connecticut Lighthouse by Tom Kovac. I am a collector of lighthouses. I lived in Savannah, Georgia for 5 years, and I was always going to the beach on Tyree Island and visiting the lighthouse there. I don't know if that lighthouse is haunted or not. I haven't heard any ghost stories about it. It is. I loved reading all the ghost stories in Fate magazine, and that was by Elizabeth Brantley from Brooklyn. A water puppy. I tell you what, they're talking about salamanders with the water puppy because they kind of act like that. I am going to let's see. This was from 2006. And there's an article in here. Let's see how long it is. How the media avoid reporting on UFOs. That looks like a big old long article. And we can do Phyllis's I See by the Papers. Look at that. There is a beautiful and young Phyllis Galdi. Isn't she astounding? She's still astounding. Oh, my worst nightmare. My worst nightmare topic. And this just said that oh my goodness. Well, that would be why. Bear with me because this just said that my battery is running low. And I'm like, well, why is that happening? Because we're all plugged up on everything. Just have to get it there. Let's see. Because we sure don't want this to be a thing. Here we go. We'll just use this one. That should be a high-speed one. And that just turned my light back off. I'll just turn it back on. I'm having a very weird electrical day. Let's see. Woman marries cobra. Trust Phyllis to find this because she's so good. And this is way back when. This is the 2006. An Indian woman who fell in love with a snake has reportedly married the reptile. Bimbala Das of Atala village near the Orissa state capital of, Bhubaneswar, told reporters, though snakes cannot speak nor understand, we communicate in a peculiar way. Whenever I put milk near the anthill where the cobra lives, it always comes out to drink. I always get to see it every time I go near the anthill. It's never harmed me. Snakes, and particularly the cobra, are venerated in India as religious symbols worn by Lord Shiva, the god of destruction. Bimbala Das's mother, Gayuti Boy, said this about her daughter's strange love connection. Bimbala was ill. We had no money to treat her. Then she started offering milk to the snake. She was cured. That made her fall in love. Since the wedding, Das has moved into a hut built up close to the snake's anthill home. And that was a United Press International story. So that was a real story. That's different. Those that know me know my phobia. That would never happen, even if it had saved my life. No. So, solar flares and strokes, which I thought was interesting. Slovakian Dr. Michael Kovac says that people may be at a higher risk for strokes during periods when the sunspot cycle reaches its peak every 11 years. Dr. Kovac, who conducted the study of 6,100 patients, claims to have found a spike in the number of strokes and brain I don't know what happened, but here we are. I was just fiddling with everything trying to make it come back. Carl, can you hear me okay? Okay. But Dr. Kovac, who conducted the study of 6,100 patients, claims to have found a spike in the number of strokes and brain hemorrhages in the town of Novozemsky in southern Slovakia in years when solar flares are most abundant. And interestingly, he also found patients suffered fewer strokes and hemorrhages when the moon was farthest from Earth. We see a correlation between the human body and lunar and solar phenomena, even when we don't know exactly what explains the connection. Yeah, there's so much that goes on that is just bizarre. Bigfoot captured in Malaysia? Malaysian officials are denying newspaper reports that say members of the Wildlife and National Parks Department, Perhentian, have captured a baby Bigfoot. The Burrito Harian newspaper reported that a young Bigfoot was caught near the southern town of Kota Tingi. The paper quoted local residents as saying they had spoken to men who described shooting the creature with tranquilizer darts. I think that's wrong. Some of the locals then peeked into the back of their truck to see a large, hairy creature. But the Wildlife Department's Director General, Datuk Musa Nordin, denies the newspaper's account. During the period reported, the Perhelion did not mount any operations in the area. Bigfoot fever erupted in Malaysia late last year when workers claimed to have spotted 3 of the creatures on the edge of the Johor Forest Reserve, prompting worldwide media attention. They're everywhere. There's no reason that that wouldn't have happened, and there's also no reason that they wouldn't have lied about it too. So, not that I have a low and suspicious mind or anything, especially about cryptids and aliens, because I have one, right? Psychic vision saves a life. A vision woke him up at 3 a.m. It gnawed at him. Someone was trapped in Prairie Creek and could not get out. Clifford Foss tried to ignore it. He was tired and wanted to sleep, but the vision would not go away. Around 7:30 a.m. the next day, Foss and his son left their Amanda Park, Washington home. As they passed over Prairie Creek, Foss looked for signs of trouble, but seeing nothing, he began to discount his premonition from the previous night. A little farther down the road, they passed Milburn Creek. A 3-foot section of guardrail was bent back on the opposite side of the road. Muddy tire tracks pointed toward the creek. Accidents happened and are cleared away in the middle of the night all the time, Foss reasoned. They kept driving. Did you hear an ambulance last night? Foss asked his son. No, his son replied. We better go back, Foss decided. He turned around and parked beside the guardrail. Jesse hopped
Cat, you froze again. Cat's having difficulties right now. She'll be back on as soon as she signs back in.
So here I am.
You're good.
There's Coral. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm on a different, let's see what happens there. Okay. That will take me just about all the way right. So I apologize for that. I don't know why my battery croaked on me so fast. But we were talking about going over that bridge. So he turned around and parked beside the guardrail. Jesse hopped out and peered down into the 20-foot ravine. I'll put it over here, and that way I can read it and still not be with my back to you. There, partially obscured by trees, a mangled black pickup truck was at the bottom of the shallow creek. Edgar Allen, a 46-year-old Olympian on his way to Nia Bay for a commercial fishing trip, hung halfway out of the driver's side window, covered in blood and screaming for help. Volunteer emergency medical technician Mike Shepard says it's difficult to tell how long Edgar would have survived if the Fosses hadn't found him. The accident was impossible to see from the road, and he surmised that more than 100 cars had probably driven past before the Fosses stopped. Clifford Foss said he's not a very religious man. He doesn't go to church often, but he does believe in God. And the vision that made him stop, he says, was sent from above. I believe the Holy Spirit or something sat there all night and gnawed on my ear to do something. If I hadn't had visions all night, I wouldn't have seen it. We would have been like the other 150 cars. All there was a beat up guardrail. And I apologize. We have people that are outside, and my dogs just heard them. And we're Tipper. They are very protective. And they're very kind of active tonight, too, because of all the hoopla. Now, this is something that we used to do, and I haven't seen it as much anymore, but I think we've started back the bulletin board. And this included extraordinary technology conference, animal communication seminars, UFO Olympics. That one was interesting. August 12th through 13th, San Luis Valley, Colorado. And there was a phone number to call if you wanted to go to it. So I just thought that was cool as all get out. So, Healing the Broken Circle, third annual Paranormal Expo, and that was in Monica, Pennsylvania. Mothman Festival, September 16th and 17th. You know, sometimes it just amazes me to be part of this organization. I love Fate. I love the things that they do and have done and will do over time. Phyllis is thebomb.com. That's the Amazing God one again. And I really want to share this with you too. And I'm not really sure how this is going to look considering how much closer my camera was, but that's okay too. What am I doing? I can't see without my glasses. We learned that the other night, didn't we, Carl? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. I've heard that a lot lately from various quarters. It comes in real handy. One of the more recent uses of this saying has been by Donald Rumsfeld. We remember him, right? Um, but it has greater currency perhaps in the paranormal and especially UFO circles. The last time I actually saw it in print, it was used by Stanton Friedman, my hero. Miss him. Ironically enough, the phrase seems to have originated with the late Carl Sagan, a leading skeptic. I don't believe he was using it to justify a belief in UFOs, however. He was probably defending the continuance of SETI. If he were aware of the uses to which the quotation has been put, he would be rating in his grave. Yeah. For a long time, it was very fashionable in skeptical and scientific circles to say that there's not a shred of evidence for something, usually something paranormal. Until I heard that, I have been unaware that the smallest unit of evidence is the shred. The only other unit that comes to mind is the mountain. It used to be common among atheists to say that there is not a shred of evidence for God or any sort of survival after death. In that case, I suppose it depends what you mean by evidence, right? So, the atheist meant scientific evidence of the sort that can be verified by repeatable experiments. Never mind that God doesn't work that way, or that material evidence is meaningless when dealing with transcendental concepts. You want evidence? Well, the heaven and earth are full of his glory. Aside from that, there's not a shred of evidence outside the Bible for many of the events, people, and places that it mentions. However, Sagan perhaps inadvertently came up with the irrefutable counter-arguments to the shred of evidence. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Quite true, but what is? This cute little aphorism meant that you can assert anything you like. No one can disprove it. In some cases, your assertion may indeed be true. So what if no acceptable concrete evidence exists that this planet has been repeatedly visited by extraterrestrial spacecraft? You'd think that sometime during the years, during the millennia, that this planet has been visited. Someone would have been
Someone would have discarded an alien Kleenex at least, but nope, there is nothing. But absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Yet, however appealing it may be to resort to this wordplay, and however undeniable it may be, it is no argument at all. Sure, some UFOs may exist despite the absence of any acknowledged hard evidence, but what about the little orange men who dwell in your commode tank? Don't see them? Well, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Maybe they're there after all. Hey, Suadon. On the other hand, there is no evidence of living giant dinosaur mastodons in Yellowstone Park, even if they were there many thousands of millennia of years ago. Touche, Sue. You're always good for that. Thank you. But I wanted to find another one of Janice's things, but these are all going to be David. But we have time for that. Now, I know that I showed y'all this one because I really liked it. And it's the because beach, right? Dolphins speak. Oh, look, Carl, the pictures work better on this one. So there's that. And you can see Al really well too. And then you've got Chupacabra cover up, Ghosts and UFOs. And one stage, on the other hand, there is no evidence of living giant dinosaurs. Yep. You're repeating yourself, Suadon. Hi, kid. Now, I'm going to read this dolphin speak to us because I don't think I did the last time I did this kind of a show. And oh my goodness, look at this. There's a picture. Oh, I forget that this camera does so much better. There's a picture of Phyllis kissing a dolphin. And I have to tell you that a dolphin painted this picture for me in Vegas. I was at the one that has Siegfried and Roy. I'm not a gambler. I don't know the casinos, but they had a dolphin encounter. And a dolphin literally painted this for me. So I love it. And it lives right there by my desk where I can see everything. But, and now it's on Whopper Jawed. I love Whopper Jawed, so no one ever. It will just have to live. Oh, or right there. It worked. So this is, and I have swim with dolphins, but that was at Discovery Cove down in Orlando. I would swim with them every day. And Phyllis is here getting dolphin kisses and says, I had an incredible experience swimming with dolphins in the Caribbean. Some animal communicators feel that it is criminal to have any captive dolphins. However, it was a life changing experience for me. I was fortunate to spend an hour with Newton and Galileo. Don't you love that? Two teenage male dolphins, and it was a fabulous, unforgettable happening. I truly felt love and joy from both of them. They seemed to just enjoy being rowdy, speedy, graceful, and playful. Also, I've heard some dolphins allow themselves to be captured so they can teach people joy and goodness. The question will be asked them, are all zoos wrong to have any kind of captive animals? In some instances, the care and breeding of the rare or endangered species are what's keeping a given strain from becoming extinct. In some cases, when enough animals are born and successfully raised, they are introduced back into the wild. And I have seen that happen successfully because I think that that's a good thing. And Phyllis also included this fate, and this issue does not have the date. But it says she's 725. And she says, for those of you who are new to Fate, we want to let you know that although David Godwin, heart and soul of the production and guidance of Fate, has left this physical world, he has not left Fate. He indicated through a fine local medium, Janice Carlson, that he wishes to document life after death. He told her that he will answer questions our readers might have. Just send them to Fate or email them to fate@fatemag.com. I have had direct communication from him, and it is fascinating and eye opening, but do not feel confident to hear all of what he has to say. Janice is the expert, and she says he is very easy to communicate with. And I would never bet against Phyllis. Phyllis is brilliant. And in this instance, this would be the first, the amazing Godwin from Spirit. And I think that had to be something that was very hard and very wonderful for her. And no matter what happens in the sands of time, she will always be my hero, one of my strongest heroes. Dolphins and Water. And this is As Told to Phyllis Galdi by Janice Carlson. We asked David about dolphins from his perspective, and he said that they're horrified at the shape our oceans are in. I've heard that the bottom mile of our oceans are so polluted there's no life there and everything is dead. Close parentheses. He said no, but we are certainly headed that way. He said the people he communicates with on the other side often live near lakes and rivers. Water has a magical quality in the afterlife. He says that it helps connect souls like a ribbon wrapped around a package. He said there are oceans up there with fish, whales, and dolphins. Growing up in North Dakota and now living in Minnesota, I was curious about the weather in the afterlife. Does it snow? Rain? Is it cold? Does it storm? Are people ever uncomfortable? And David said, when you're in the afterlife, you're in a place where the weather is always sunny and perfect. But if your soul is evolved enough, you can travel to any sort of weather you like, any season you want. Think Star Trek holodeck. David says he hasn't seen anyone who is physically uncomfortable, but he says some can be emotionally uncomfortable if they have karmic work to do, sort of like an AA meeting for those who have some maturing to do or need to review their actions on Earth. It is mainly nice in the afterlife, but there are still goals to strive for. Our souls are always evolving. If people in the afterlife need drama in their lives, our earthly life conflicts provide it. There can be respectful debates, and sometimes are sent back to Earth for do overs. I got some things I'd like to do over. I asked David if he'd ever gone into outer space and seen aliens. He said he had not gone into outer space yet, but he might like to do it in the future. Again, any planet you might want to visit can be simulated. So why leave the comforts of heaven? He mainly studies aliens through holographic files. They keep to their own land, kind, he says, and they don't like to be stared at or studied any more than humans do. Some of them are public speakers, and he has listened to one of their presentations, but it was pretty much a one class, boring in its simplicity. He laughed and said, maybe they think we're too stupid to grasp anything complex. That sounds about right, right? And, one of the things that I like about um, that column is that you can get a sense of the mind behind the creation of Fate. And you can get a sense of the mind of the current curator of Fate, because very similar. That's why they were so special together. And, it just is. And these are reports from readers. And this is a loyal reader's letter. I love Fate and have been reading it since it first came out in the late 40s. Our parents read a lot, as did my two sisters and I. My father came home one day with probably the first issue of Fate, and we have been hooked on it since then. We were pretty young when we were first introduced to Fate, but since we loved it, we loved to hear ghost stories, etc. We truly enjoyed reading it. My sisters and I would fight over the magazine. Our children and grandchildren also enjoy reading Fate. When they come to visit us from out of state, the first thing they ask me is if I have any new issues of Fate. They've read them all. Keep up the good work. Sincerely, Connie from Los Alamos, Colorado. And then my favorite Fate article. I just read in Fate that you are requesting readers' favorite stories. I can't remember the issue, but my all-time Fate article is the one about places to visit. Turtle Mound in Florida, the Isle of Avalon, Coral Castle were all among the places to visit. Thanks to this article, I visited all of them and was so happy to do so. Please keep sending Fate. It keeps me going. Blessings. How nice is that? I think that's one of the best things is to, I mean, Fate has anomalous topics, but there's a lot of discussion involved in them. And, there's so much. There is so much going on. Let's see, this is Nevada Giants. While recently rereading the May June 2013 issue of Fate in the I See by the Papers section, the writing on Nevada Giants caught my eye. There was just something so familiar about it. I rechecked Vincent Gaddis's book, Amazon Indian Myths and Mysteries, and there it was. In the chapter on European, good grief, European wanderers, Mr. Gaddis mentioned a cave 22 miles southwest of Lubbock, Nevada, which is dry and smoke-stained, filled with artifacts and exceptionally tall skeletons. It is a source of legend to the Paiute Indians. Supposedly, the tall folk buried there were red-haired cannibals. They also were light-skinned. Aggravated to distraction by the folks' appetite for the Paiute flesh, the Paiute fought to defend themselves. When the cannibals made a last stand hunkered in the aforementioned cave, the Paiute set a huge fire in front of the cave mouth and suffocated its inhabitants. As far as folklore and legends go, I guess the old saying is true, where there's smoke, there's fire. Submitting the above with great affection to Fate and its loyal staffers. And then shortly before this one, there had been a really good John Keel interview article. So thanks very much for printing my memories of John A. Keel in the issue 724. The typo in the first sentence should read 1967, not 1976. Although I invited you to make cuts, you still printed the article completely intact, and your minor changes were excellent. Your readers might want to know that I have no computer or typewriter and hand printed the manuscript and submitted it snail mail. Still, it got published. I'm hoping this will create a flood of similar written memories of Keel and perhaps even a memorial issue. In his writing career, he managed to make a few errors, as all of us do, but his risky contributions are beyond dispute. I'd love to hear from other John Keel fans. And then, great John Keel article. Thanks for the nice article on John Keel. He was an extraordinary author, topped by no one in my estimation. He was someone who could not be pigeonholed nor categorized. Skeptics as well as occultists alike were intimidated by him. I read Mothman Prophecies around the time the movie came out. I could not put it down. Same thing with Our Haunted Planet. Aside from that, the last issue was the best, just like the old Fate. Aside from that, 3 cheers. And then a fond farewell to Mr. Keel. I was greatly grieved to read about the death of John Keel in the September-October issue of Fate magazine. And the more I looked at the article in question, the more depressed I became over the loss to the Fortean community as a whole. It seems to me John Keel was doing something with Fate magazine in the 1950s when Ray Palmer and Richard Shaver owned the magazine. I was a very little boy in the late 50s and early 60s. Still, my mother read Fate regularly, and it seems she was familiar with Keel's activity, delving into the paranormal and his writings exploring a higher natural order of things than conventional thinkers generally take into their consideration of the norm. Like Micah Hanks, who is one of my heroes, I love Micah. I think certain modern aspects of the Forteans that seem beyond the scope of Charles Fort's original intent of his studies should hereafter be known as Keelian. I say that not only as a tribute to the late great John Keel, but because Mr. Keel really contributed so much to Fortean sciences, he deserves it. So let all of us amid the damned march onward to the beat of the Keelian drum. So there's that. But I will say that Micah Hanks, if you have not read his work, he is a great author. And I used to harass him because he couldn't get the next. He has a series, and I was reading the series as he was putting them out. And I've interviewed him. He is a lot of fun. But it was so funny because I'm like, you need to get this out. I'm waiting on this next book. And he was like, it will be out soon. The the hazards of having your readers have access to you. Let's see. I wonder what this says back here. My proof of survival. This one's this one has some it's a little faded, but I'm gonna try it. Old eyes, don't you know? My daughter Tamara Lee's late mother-in-law, Sue Lee, always loved hummingbirds. She had a number of hummingbird feeders in her backyard at her home in Anaheim, California. She collected hummingbird figurines and liked to watch and talk about hummingbirds. They're fascinating little creatures, to tell her friends, relatives, and anyone else who would listen. The birds that Sue was so interested in and fascinated by became a very big part of her life, and apparently a part of her afterlife. A few years ago, Sue suddenly became seriously ill. My daughter and her husband, Eli, were on vacation when they were called back to Los Angeles. When the family arrived at Sue's hospital room on the top floor of the hospital, only a few hours were left before she would pass away. As they sat sadly around the bed, they noticed something tapping at the window. It was a colorful little hummingbird. It hovered near the window for a very long time. What amazed everyone was that a hummingbird would remain that high off the ground. There were certainly no flowers or trees to interest the little bird at that height. When Sue passed on, the hummingbird disappeared from the window. My daughter Tamara handled much of the arrangements for Sue's funeral. One of her tasks was to notify friends and family. She called one of Sue's closest friends who lived in Arizona. As they talked, the friend suddenly stopped crying and gasped, "Oh my God, Tamara, you wouldn't believe this, but there's a purple hummingbird hovering nearby by my window." The purple hummingbird was Sue's favorite color of the bird. Both Tamara and Sue's friend felt sure that Sue was somehow sending them a message from beyond, but that wasn't the end of the haunting hummingbird incidents. Sue's son, Eli, took his mother's passing quite hard. A short time after the funeral, Eli was working late to his garage to take his mind off things. To the best of his knowledge, to the best of my knowledge, hummingbirds are not night birds. Yet one flew into the garage somehow. It was odd, as Eli didn't remember leaving any doors or windows open, but there was a yellow hummingbird this time floating around the shop. The little bird landed and allowed Eli to gently escort it outside, where it flew into the warm night. He was amazed, but felt comforted. A few days later, he encountered another hummingbird. The bird at Sue's hospital window had defied hummingbird behavior by flying so high, and now this one went for the other direction. Eli worked as a pipe fitter on commercial jobs and was working on a building in downtown Los Angeles. He was putting in heating and other pipes in deep, long hallways in the basement. And again, he was visited by a hummingbird. Now there was no earthly reason for a little hummingbird to be down in the basement where there were no flowers, trees, or nourishment for a bird. Coincidences are one thing, but this appeared to be more than just chance. Again, the little bird allowed him to take it up the stairs and to release it outside. After these hummingbird encounters, Eli really felt his mother was sending him a message from beyond. He started to feel better with each passing day. There was one more strange incident that cemented my daughter Tamara's belief that Sue's spirit was still around. She was washing dishes on a bright sunny day, and the open window above the sink looked out into the fenced-in backyard where she could see her two small sons, Blake and Dylan, playing. She smiled as the boys laughed and ran, but she stopped when she heard them cry, "Grandma, Grandma." A shiver ran up her back when she saw the boys chasing a little hummingbird around the yard. A purple hummingbird that it seemed that Sue still had to say goodbye to her little grandsons. Well, now I'm all goosebumpy. All goosebumpy. it's hummingbirds migrate, and we don't have them here all year round. But when they leave, and I know nobody's coming back, and I take my feeders down, then I just have them there, and it's really a cool thing for me. I I take the feeders down, I wash them, I put them under the sink, and then I've got probably, let's see, it's February. I've probably got another month before it's time for them to get back. And the first time that it's been warm for a bit is when my feeders will go back out, because I'm very attached to my birds. I think that they're really amazing, and they seem to like me too. I had I I, I wear really bright toenail polish, and I was sitting outside with my son one afternoon morning, and one landed on my toe, and he was just like, "Ah, come on, mom, what is this, freaking Disney or something here? What's going on with you and the hummingbirds?" But you know, I feel like hummingbirds know who are good and know who are bad, just like children do. Always trust a child's take on a person. I'm just saying, because you just don't know until you do. And you always want to, if there's somebody your kid doesn't want to be left with, don't let them around your kid. It's that simple. Let's see what we have back here. There's a fake bookshop, right? So, yeah. And then there's like decorate and style with all the magazine covers. How cool is she? She comes up with the neatest stuff. And this is another amazing Godwin in spirit, and channeling with Janice, getting answers. And so Phyllis says, describe what happened when you realized you were dead. And David said, part of my spirit stayed behind with you. As spirit matter, subatomic matter can be in two places at once. It was my home, and part of me has never left it. Who did you first see on the other side? Guides? Anyone you know? First person I saw was my mother. She was smiling. I wasn't sad about anything except no longer being able to be physically on earth for you and Fate Magazine and our staff and friends. What did you do then? I rested and got reoriented, met with friends, relatives, and pets on the other side. I am my higher self. Were you aware of time as we perceive it on earth? Time is not the same in the afterlife. We have to use earth clocks to remind ourselves what time it is in the part of the earth our loved ones are on. What level of theosophy are you at now? 2, 3, 4? I guess using that classification, I'm at 3. Not much emphasis put on that with me by the powers that be. They seem pretty happy with how evolved my soul is. It is rated by one's sense of connection, love, and generosity with others. Some spirits here have flunked that test or need to work on evolving themselves. It's either that or they get sent back to Earth or another planet to learn those lessons the hard way. Rather just stay there once I get there. What was your life review like? Not a life review per se. Some more evolved spirits ask you how you feel you did in physical form. If they disagree with your assessment, they'll let you know, and they'll let you know why they disagree. A program may be in place to help you evolve. They haven't put me in any program, so I guess I made the cut. David is smiling when he says this. I do volunteer to help with various angel missions on Earth, but I'm not required to help. It's in my nature to volunteer, especially when people or animals are suffering. Such missions are spiritually fulfilling, but can take a lot of energy to carry out. David also says, the next ice age will not happen suddenly. It will happen gradually as the polar vortex keeps falling south. That would be an example of when spirits and angels are needed by the people on the earth. Makes sense, I guess. But, you know, I just think, I mean, who would have thought to have Janice um, getting answers from David for Phyllis? Phyllis would think that. And I don't know if they had time to make a plan to do that, but how very cool that they do. And, I just think that the whole thing is neat. I think that it's beautiful that she shares them like she does with the magazines. And I I've really never known anyone like Phyllis. She is so knowledgeable. She knows so much. When she was caught in her house in the floods in North Carolina, she just took care of things. She had she's had she's had body parts replaced and the hips. She was out chasing goats. I was I was like, "Why are you chasing goats? What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, because I have to get them." And that's Phyllis. Okay, she is kind. She is, you know, take no crap. I mean, really, but she's just so special. And it's just cool. And anytime I anytime I get to talk to her, it's a good day because she's that person. So I like her. And so far, she hasn't like beaten me over the head or anything. So that's good. Now, something I wanted to share with you here. This is Janice's magazine, Soul Sensing. Can you see that? And you can get it on Amazon. You can order it probably through Fate. And in the back of the magazines are order forms so that you can exploring the healing miracle. We have a whole bookshop, a whole book section, fatemag.com. Fatemag.com. You can go there. You can look at the books. You can look at the things. You can subscribe to the magazine. You can order specific editions of the mag. If you read an article and you don't have your magazine, trust me, you're supposed to. I get the magazines because I take them to conferences with me and stuff. If you see me at a conference, I'm going to have magazines. Ask me about it. But it's just so cool because Phyllis remembers. If I were to say, what article has the Chupacabra cover up, she would know. She knows everything about fate. And I've never seen anybody with that kind of memory retention. I think it's really cool. So, but I am probably her biggest fan. So there's that. And I'm not going to read you my article. Y'all have heard me read that. Let's see how long this one is. Every time I say I'm going to find a short one, I just don't. Oh my goodness. Okay. We're going to close with a bit of humor. Okay. So, the snake that defends itself by farting. How about that? My son and my grandsons would love this article. But, and this one is actually in the Contactees edition. And it has the Uri Geller stuff, Rebel Angels. If we have time, we'll do that one too. The snake that defends itself by farting. The cobra has venom, and the anaconda uses its powerful coils to strangle prey. Many snakes use different tactics to catch prey and to defend themselves against other predators. The western hook-nosed snake employs a different method to defend itself: flatulence. The western hook-nosed snake is indigenous to the southwestern portion of the United States as well as Mexico. It is a small snake that feeds on bugs, arachnids, and other small lizards. When the snake is threatened, it emits a rumbling sound from its cloaca, opening where excrement is discharged. This defense creates a loud popping sound that is designed to confuse predators long enough for the snake to make its escape. Bruce Young, an experimental morphologist and leading expert on snake sounds, explains that the farts are created by two sets of muscles that compress air bubbles and are forced through the cloaca, which creates the loud popping sounds. The sound can be heard up to almost 7 feet away and is not loud by human standards, but is a higher frequency that can be heard by other animals. The hook-nosed snake puts such energy into this technique that they can. I'm so sorry. That's what I get for reading ahead. So much energy into this technique that they can sometimes actually fling themselves off the ground in a sort of jump. In addition to the western hook-nosed snake, the Arizona coral snake also employs the same technique to confuse threats. Unlike the western hook-nosed snake, however, the coral snake is a highly venomous snake, which we all know, red and yellow kill a fella, right? But oh my gosh, the snake that farts so hard it leaps off the ground. I've seen little kids like that and big kids. This is the one where they did the predictions that were there. Let's see. We can't do a really long one. Let's see what we have here. Okay. And here is Phyllis and Rosemary, her best friend that she misses still so much to this day. And let me tell you, from what I understand, they were hell when they were well, guys. Amazing. And you can run ads in Fate too. If you're an author or doing anything of that nature, this is the Amazing God, One in Spirit. This is going to be the last thing we do. Again, through Janice. Is there an online listing of Fate magazine articles? No, Sue, there's not a definitive one. But Phyllis can let you know. She knows where almost all of them are. Now, the question was, according to CNN, astronomers found a potentially habitable planet called Proxima b around the star Proxima Centauri, which is only 4.2 light years from Earth. Only. Now researchers have traced a second signal they believe belongs to a super Earth orbiting the same star, increasing the intrigue of this neighboring planetary system and its potential. Does David think there is life on this planet? Does he ever go there? And the answer is, David says there are many such planets in the cosmos that are habitable for humans. He has visited this one and says that it did remind him quite a bit of Earth. When visiting planets, he does not always get out of his spacecraft. Sometimes he and the other spirits with him just orbit it and scan it. His particular spacecraft is crystal powered. It's interdimensional travel of some kind, so they are cloaked from view when orbiting planets. Space travel is very popular in the spirit world. I wonder why they would need a spacecraft. I'm going to have to ask Janet. Some of it is for pleasure. Others travel for research and angel intervention purposes. David says the size of these vessels varies. His seats 6, but they can be a lot bigger than that. I'm unable to tell you much about the spirits he's traveling with, except he mentions someone named Carl. That's very likely Carl Weschke, owner of the Llewellyn Publications, where David and I both worked. He passed a couple of years ago. Question: does David know if there are beings, aliens, people living within the earth? If so, what are they like? Is the earth hollow like some believe? How much has the government been digging tunnels, etc., for travel, storage, and escape? Answer: David says there's dormant alien DNA under deep layers of the earth. He says the earth is not hollow. it has a molten core. He said the octopus is an example of alien DNA on Earth. It's more likely that aliens live under the seafloor than under dry Earth. There are many underground networks. They are located under government buildings and military bases. They are for storage, hiding, and escape. David meets Rosemary at least once a week for coffee or drinks. They watch movies, sci fi, about once a month. Wow. Not gonna lie, these are such special people. Oh my goodness. I have not read this article, but there is a tattoo on a mummy. Tattoo on Otzi, Otzi, and a well preserved mummy, also of Otzi. We'll read this one, guys, the next time that we're doing this, because we really, really don't have time. And this was in the article about walking artwork, the tattoo edition. And I will have these with me in Arkansas. If you come to the Eureka Springs UFO conference, I will have these until I don't. So, and that article is so pretty. But see some of the stuff, animal survival and loss. I just think you've got to get some of these. You can order them at fatemag.com. Go check them out. You can get the books. There's so many books. But just you can get t-shirts. But just go check it out. And you know what? I know that this was a little bit weird with the computer just croaking on me like that, but that's okay because back up. And speaking of backup, we will be back up Wednesday, Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson, and I will be welcoming the founder of the, I have just lost my mind. Leslie is, they're antebellum ghost hunters, is what they are. And they are beautiful. And their costumes are beautiful. They're real investigators. They are absolutely brilliant. And I'm going to have Leslie, their founder, on with me. And I think you're going to love her. She's going to be good. And she sounds like me. So there's that. That'll be a Southern show. So join me, and I will be back next week, same cat time, same cat channel, for the next episode of Fate Mag Radio. I appreciate you being here. Sorry, I don't know exactly where to look for this device that I've got going on, but you know what? That doesn't mean I don't appreciate every single one of you. Suadon, I love when you show up in my chat. Thank you for being here. And I will see y'all next time. Same cat channel.